Hello everyone, and I hope that you are ready for 2025, and I hope that you had a wonderful new year. So today I'd like to share with you a conversation that a friend and I had last night on New Year's Eve. I'm going to call it Questions About Reincarnation. So she is a spiritual friend, but she is not a Shakta, not Hindu, does not worship Hindu gods or follow Eastern philosophy. So she had some questions about reincarnation that I tried to the best of my ability to answer based on my studies and any wisdom I picked up along the way, reading books, learning from people. But some ideas to keep in mind for 2025 in general is what about yourself will you burn and what will you build? So there's parts of ourselves that we can improve, that are still good, that are still salvageable, that most of who we are is salvageable. Most can be built from. But if something about ourselves no longer serves us, then we must be willing to burn it so that something else can be born out of the ashes, like the phoenix, of whatever part of ourselves that we decided to burn, to get rid of, to whether it's a bad habit or a bad way of being, or being negative, being pessimistic, or some kind of emotion that you've just let get out of control, anger, depression. What part of yourself can you burn and how will you do it? And what do you want to allow to flourish in its place, whatever it might be? What will you burn and what will you build? And so ultimately time is an illusion, it's Maya, it doesn't really exist. But these phases of time can be useful in getting us to act, within and in our external lives. Anything that can spur on action, whether it be a whole new year or a new season, the changing of the weather, whatever it is, if it can spur you to a new kind of action in your life, then embrace that and use that. And of course, there's various changes of energy that the earth goes through, how consciousness itself changes as these yugas go by, as these cycles go by, how the planets align, sun and the moon influence us as well. But these are all relatively minor factors compared to what we as human beings can accept as being agents of our own destiny or agents of our own lives. All of these things have an effect on us, but if we have the force of will and we are willing to do the work, then all of these exterior minor factors are not the movers and shakers or the instigators of things that happen in our lives, not in big ways, if we have the willpower to be people of action, to be men and women of action, rather than men and women who are inflicted by the environment. But once again, anything that you can use to get you to act in your life, to build or to burn, use it. And New Year's and New Year's resolutions are a great time for that, because we kind of feel like we want to start fresh. Spring is coming, we're entering into spring, winter is ending, at least in my part of the world in North Texas. But seasons are a little bit different everywhere. But use this time. If it feels like a transitional time for you, use that opportunity to act in a way in your life that uses this transition to its fullest potential. But you choose how much of this transition you will take advantage of. If you feel like this is a new transition into a new year, maybe a new you. Resolutions are important, but once again, action, action, action. If we do not act in our lives, then we can't expect our resolutions to come to anything. We can't expect our plans to just kind of make themselves happen. We have to act in our lives, inwardly and exterior. And in the exterior world, we have to act. Not just use words, not just say we'll do something, but actually make things happen. It's very important to remember that, as this is a time of resolutions and plans and transition. At any rate, I was thinking about scrapping this conversation that I'm about to show you, but it was a very interesting conversation, very interesting night. I decided to record a piece of it, And my friend was asking me about reincarnation. If you like this conversation, or if you like this kind of video, even though it's not the best quality, then feel free to let me know in the comments. Like this video, it really helps out the channel, and feel free to share this wherever you like. And yeah, I love to hear from you guys, and it really helps when you like the video or share or comment. At any rate, thank you very much for watching, and we'll get to the conversation.
I don't get to even halfway where I want to be. Would I be reincarnated then as somebody just living in poverty in the projects, or
it depends on how greedy you were, and how obsessed with your own person rather than how you treated others and how you behaved towards the environment. That determines how you are reborn. You might be reborn as a poorer person because you are obsessed with wealth. You might be reborn as a person who is very much prone to lust if you were very lustful. It carries into the next life. Whatever we flourish, whatever seeds we plant in this life, and whatever we choose to embrace in this life determines our next birth and the predispositions of the person that we are born into. It becomes a fabric that we don, our soul dons in our next birth. Every soul works towards a certain fabric that we create in the previous life, and then we are born into that fabric once more.
Are we confined though to that fabric once we're born to it? I mean,
we can choose to continue to work on those issues, to work on those problems, to work on those tendencies. If we choose not to, then the fabric that we were born into determines who we are. But if we choose to work on these things, then in that life and the next one, they no longer define us.
So we can still have the next life if we were born to a life full of lust.
Yeah.
In the next life, we can have that not define us if we choose
Yeah,
to.
and in that life itself, that if we choose to work against those negative tendencies, then those negative tendencies don't need to define us. We can work away from the tendencies that we were born into the fabric that we worked on in previous lives and become more than we were and more than we are right now. Even if we were born into a particularly lustful body, then we can choose to not be lustful. But it's harder because in a previous lifetime, we worked towards the body that we have, the energetic body and the physical body that we have.
What are some of the negative consequences, though, of being somebody in the next life who is lustful? Because lustful, I'm sure, reaps benefits for some people, or they wouldn't do it.
But benefits to being lustful, you will live a life of lust. But if you really want that, let's put it this way: if you were a snake or an animal that didn't have a lot of lust, a lot of capacity for greed and lust are a big step in the right direction. But if you're a human being who can realize more than that, who can be more than that, then it will no longer serve you to continue that pattern. So it's best to not don the same fabric that was a jump from the previous endeavors into a higher degree of consciousness, into a higher degree of manifestation of individuality, which we have that ability in human beings and being human beings. Does that make sense?
It does, but I guess what I was just trying to ask, maybe you answered it, I'm trying to ask, like, what negative effects of lust would we reap in the next life if we were
very lustful?
Yeah, because I'm sure there's a lot of comfort and desire, but does that make sense?
Yeah. If so, reborn in this life, we would have a tendency to go towards partners or people who could satisfy that lust
without any real substance, right? Is that what you're saying, or like love or anything to it?
Yeah. Love does not manifest if we do not work towards it, or love will not be just because lust is. And ultimately, we will not be satisfied with just lust, because in our older years, that ability to fulfill lust becomes inert, and we're not able to satisfy that same desire, so we feel empty inside, and we feel absent of purpose and absent of... We all inherently know that we can be more, and in our later years, we start to realize that when we can no longer satisfy any said desire. Does that...
So that makes sense. So we get that sense of emptiness and lack of fulfillment and lack of purpose if we're just lustful and having to deal with being lustful in the next life.
Yeah, for sure. And we'd have to be extremely lustful and extremely predatory in order to be born as an animal. To be born in the hells, you'd have to like force yourself onto people or something like that.
Yeah.
And hell is temporary. A certain life's tendencies are temporary.
So hell is like a purgatory? It's not permanent?
No, hell is not permanent. It is a place where negative karma is burned off. And once we burn off the negative karma through suffering, then we gain another birth in some kind of incarnation.
I always thought of hell as being hell on earth. Is there another place that people go to hell?
Hell can... there are dimensions that are hellish, that are fire, that are not necessarily fire, but suffering, darkness, and fear.
Are they like dimensions of this one or a different one?
Dimensions exist in the same space, but they are different frequencies. So they exist in the same space, but they are different dimensions. But hell on earth does exist, can exist, and will exist as long as people take advantage of one another rather than sharing with one another. But hell on earth exists, but also it's a state of mind. Somebody who's very wealthy can experience hell here. Somebody who is very wealthy might experience hell in the form of poverty in the next life, but they also might experience it here because they want more and more, and it can never be satisfied. And their anxieties are all around how much they have, and they're not able to have enough to really satisfy anything, because it is an abyss, a black hole, to want more and more, and it can never be satisfied. Greed, lust, these things cannot be satisfied whatsoever.
And that's a tormenting feeling, so that answers that too. It's a tormenting feeling to have a desire that's never satisfied.
Yeah,
so
and no desire can ever be completely satisfied or forever satisfied. All desire, all satisfaction as a result of satisfying desire is always temporary. That is why it's best to work away from desire and to work towards being a human being who does not rely upon the satisfaction of the senses.
That's definitely something to contemplate. Yeah, that's
For sure.
a new concept to digest, but I can definitely see that.
Yeah, for sure.